is it, I guess, is it worthwhile? Is it okay to try and teach your children the value of pain?
Okay. Like hitting them?
Yeah.
Yeah, like...
Struggle. Be like this. I'm sorry to do this, but you'll thank me later.
Yeah, in therapy. Man, okay. Josephine? Amir, hello? Nothing is happening. We're just wasting time, as always.
We talk about how one might support a 14-year-old who's been through a lot of stuff, and maybe could we talk about how to think about it?
Okay. You know, this is Monday. You know, questions are supposed to be like easy and non-traumatic. Wolf? Anything?
Always lots of stuff.
Oh, give us one. Everybody else is...
I talked about the apprentice that left.
Yeah.
They're back. I wanted to teach them again and kind of like, so I think that's the question. Do you guys take this person on again?
Okay. Yeah.
I have a proposal.
Sure.
It's the same question I did for the what ethical factors contribute to the difficulty that individuals face in accepting criticism of their parents?
Oh, that's a good one. Say again?
It's not like beating the child.
It's very close, though. Andrew, anything?
We were going to talk about observation, and like I said, there's nausea.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's Joyce? Well, there isn't really much to talk about. Avi? Oh, yeah.
I also, given the situation that's happening right now, something about like why do some people think some lives are more valuable than other lives?
I feel as if I'm really not qualified to wrestle with any of these questions. Yeah.
Very off topic.
but I was wondering if you heard recent news that the U.S. has recognized that the 1953 coup was undemocratic.
Where, in Iran?
Yeah.
The US said that?
Yeah.
Of all the people?
Yeah.
Huh. It's like Satan saying what I did like 20 years ago was really bad and I'm sorry. I can't remember all the questions, but let me just, just go through them quickly from the easiest to the most complex. So let's do that one first. If you have a 14-year-old, should you save them? If the 14-year-old is your daughter, your son, if it's a sibling, maybe. It depends. To do anything requires time, requires energy, requires attraction. And because if you're young, you have an enormous capacity. You have an enormous amount of energy and will and drive to be out there and help people. It also depends in what ways they're broken, Do they need a simple upgrade? Is it the foundation that's cracked? All of us in this class enjoy playing the Messiah figure. There is nothing wrong with that. And it's because we are moved by people's pain and sorrow and suffering. And because of us being moved, we like to help as much as we can. And it's a good way of, I suppose, moving away from your own life and being for another. It's the best way to kind of forget your own problems in life, and that's good. If, for example, you had come to my office and you had said, anyone, I'm not talking about just because it's your question, the focus isn't really on you, said, I have, this friend, he or she is 14 and they need help. I would ask if you're done with school, how many units you're carrying, do you have a job, how much money do you make, is your own life secure, how are your parents, and all that stuff. Because I think before you can clean someone else's house, it's not a bad idea to make sure your own house is clean. And it's a good amount of projection bias on my part, because I'm no longer 25, 30. Very much like you. I used to meet with students twice a week. We used to go to Berkeley, have food. They used to walk with me to my office from 12 to 1. And then they would go to my classes and they would walk back to my office. They would come to my house. And it has taken me a long time to kind of go back in time in my own mind and retrieve some of the stories and ask myself if what I did for so many years of my life was valuable. In some ways, yes. In many ways, no. And I say no because you understand things as you lose them. As you lose youth, as you lose energy, as you lose capacity, and then you kind of go back and say, why did I spend my time hanging out with those people as opposed to just taking care of my own life? Or sitting back and watching a good movie. What is it about broken records that I enjoy so much? For example, why do I want to sit there and listen to someone and just whine about some stuff that I don't really care about? Why do I think that what I have to say is transformative enough, powerful enough to make some person change the way they are and who they are and all that? And once you realize none of those things are possible, the advice is cheap, that no one is going to make any changes unless there are some very, very powerful prerequisites. You know, if, for example, I knew that you really, really like me, you email me all the time, you text me all the time, and you come to my office and you say to me, what should I do with my life? Because you like me and because you don't want to disappoint me and because you respect me, I'm just going to tell you, go to school, take 50 units, and when you're done, just come back and let me know. If on the other hand, you know, you don't like me that much, you don't respect me that much, you don't fear me that much, and you don't really care if you disappoint me or not, what I have to say doesn't mean anything. It's like anybody else on this planet. Okay? So it has taken me a long time to understand a few things. And now when someone comes and says, I'm going through ABCD, what should I do? I'm just going to say a couple of things. I'm just going to wait to see if they do it. If they do so, it means, okay, maybe I can waste my time another 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. But this is, you know, one of ageism. You're young, I'm no longer that young. You have a lot of time on your hand, I don't really have that much. You assume because of your youth and lack of experience that you can actually help people. I'm no longer there. In many ways, your position is really good because you care. I don't. And because you care, you can be compassionate. I don't have that, you know. And maybe you can even be forgiving if you're betrayed many times by the 14-year-old. When you age, that becomes an impossibility in many ways. Does that make you profoundly selfish? Yes. Is it a good way of being selfish? I think so. You begin to value time, you begin to value age, you begin to value what is most meaningful. You also begin to have a great amount of respect for your own understanding that people basically don't change unless there are some really, really powerful events that are taking place. You know, there are all these people walking around saying, well, let's get the homeless out and put them in a place, in like a, I don't know, in an apartment. Let's create this huge building, 5,000 rooms and place them there. But what are you going to do with drugs? What are you going to do with violence? What are you going to do with issues of abandonment? At least when they're in the street, they'll only beat up one person. In a building, everybody gets massacred. What are you going to do? So it really depends if you want to help someone. It depends where you are in life and where they are. The movie Four Brothers, I don't know if you've seen it, those of you in this class. It's really, really a good movie. It's filled with violence and justice and all that. So what you have is this woman who's white. She's about 70 or so. And she adopts 4 kids. 2 are white, 2 are black. And then I guess they were in foster care. Now, the movie does all of us injustice because it doesn't really tell us what happens when you're adopted, what happens when your own biological parents just abandon you. We don't have the ability to see the emotions that live inside 4 young people, The movie also doesn't tell us what it means to be black. The movie doesn't tell us what it means to be white. The movie doesn't tell us the sort of burden that this old woman has to carry to kind of make this life work. She's adopted 4 kids from 4 different backgrounds, all have different issues. And you're 70, you're no longer 20. The movie also doesn't tell us the sort of forgiveness and capacity that this old woman had to embrace the brokenness of all 4 these different young kids. The movie also doesn't tell us the sort of history and the stories that these 4 kids create, that they call each other brother, that they're in fact willing to sacrifice their own lives for another, If you have that capacity to have this 14-year-old look at you and see a sister or a mother or an aunt, if you have that capacity, good for you. But you have to wait and wait and wait and wait until this 14-year-old comes to appreciate the sort of sacrifices you've made. That you've dropped your classes, you've spent your own money on this person, you spent time on this person, and that's going to take a long, long time. If you're willing to wait until you reap the fruits, fine, good for you. Yeah. It's not worth. I mean, it's up to you. It's great.
Do you give any credence to the phrase, if you love somebody, let them go, and come back there?
No, that's stupid.
Yeah.
No, if you love someone, you hold them hostage until you train them well. And once they're, they've understood some of the most important things, then you let them go. And then, of course, they're going to fall, they're going to disappoint you, they're going to betray you, but you plant the seeds, And life is like this tilling wheel. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Yeah. I mean, if you don't care for things, just let them go. If you care for things, you love them, hold them tight, and beat the crap out of them until they learn. And once, they've learned the abstract stuff, then let them go. And life will kind of make the abstract into something pragmatic and practical. Do you have children?
No.
Thank God, they're not worth having. But when you do have kids, you love them. And you're not going to let them just go freely. And you're not just going to let them hang out with anyone just because they say, Dad, I'm attracted and I have the capacity. No, going to beat them down. And once they've learned the basics, and you say, okay, now you want to go to New York to school, fine, get lost. Just make sure to call every day about 50 times. That's all. And it also depends on the love you're talking about, if you're superficially attracted and you want to define it as love, the world out there is like a vulture. There are lots of things that are going to help you lose focus. Let's say I'm attracted to you, and it's like our second time meeting, and I'm intensely attracted to you. Well, what I need to do is make sure this attraction blossoms, becomes more intense. So when you go home, it turns into like obsession, infatuation. That's when our relationship remains protected. If on the other hand I say, okay, see you in a couple months, but there are all these people around, and most of them are going to be much more attractive than I am, physically, intellectually, emotionally. Why the hell would I want to lose you to like some ridiculous bumper sticker? So if you love someone, chain them down. Okay, anyone else? Michael?
How would you do that? This was going to be my question before, but how do you do, I kind of don't know how to play right now. How can you do everything a certain type of way? Like in a sense, like, how can you do everything without getting annoyed by it or doing something over and over again without feeling repetitive, even though it is? Basically, so you get everything.
Can I tell you a personal story? It's one of those things I have so much regret. And as I age, the regret increases tenfold. When I was very young, I became very attracted to music, instruments, sitar, tambour, santur, daf, singing, and I pursued them. And I became okay, in playing and singing and all that. My friend kept telling me, Amir, go find yourself a teacher for daf, a teacher for violin, a teacher for santur, sitar. I said, no, I'm intuitive, I have a great ear. I can listen and just mimic. And all that may be true, but there comes a point that, when you know how to read notes and read them well, when you follow a certain discipline in whatever instrument you want to play, it's like your teacher opens more and more windows for you. And you can look out at this window and see a different thing. When you do things on your own, there comes a point where, because you're limited in so many different ways, you hit a plateau that there is no further you can go. And what happens is you keep repeating the same stuff over and over and over again until it becomes so boring because you've heard the stuff so much that you won't even go near it. And after a while, you just lose the ability to even enjoy your own playing, your own singing. My recommendation have always been, and because I've learned the hard way, and it's something I regret also because my kids enjoy music. And it would have been nice for me to teach them how to read notes, how to play the piano, the sitar, the santur. But I'm afraid of teaching them because they're going to learn all the wrong things from me. The way I place my fingers are wrong. The way I sit behind the piano is wrong. And once they become addicted to that particular way, which is my way, then should they become more interested and should they desire to go out there and become more proficient, they're going to find the teacher. The thing that teacher has to do is get rid of all the things I have taught them. So I eventually become an obstacle. It's true that I planted some seeds, but they also become an obstacle. So just in case there are things you want to do, and I don't know how really this is done, it kind of goes back to what Kendra had asked about attraction. Since you're young, I'm only going to be interested in school and education. Education. Okay, that's a wealth that no one can ever take away from you. You can have a PhD by the time you're 35. If you want to be a goofball for the rest of your life, at the age of 40, 45, 50, you realize that your life is going nowhere. You can always go back and say, I have a PhD, now I want to make a life for myself. That is something no one can take away from you. Okay, the banks can't touch it. Okay, it doesn't matter what the interest rates are. As long as you have a PhD, that is your wealth and that's eternal as long as you live. Now, I'm going to put your question within the context of just your education. You're young. Okay. Take classes. You're not going to like the subject matter. You're going to like the instructors. Now, you may hate math, but it may be that you're going to take, say, Bill Lapowski on this campus, who's been here about 50 years. And you may find his ways of teaching to be profoundly attractive to you. And you go to him after class and I say, are there any more classes you're teaching? Yes. And you keep taking his classes and he teaches stats. And before you know it, you realize this is what you want to do. Not because you like stats, but you love Bill Lapowski. And at the age of 15 or 18 or 19 or 20, you have a great GPS inside you. You're going to do your bachelor's in stats. You're going to do your master's in stats. You're going to get your PhD in stats. And because Bill Lapowski was the foundation of your attraction to this particular branch of knowledge, every time you run into a glitch, you're going to call him and say, Bill, what should I do? And he's going to say to you, well, do you have your bachelor's? Do you have your master's? You say, yes, I have my master's now. He says, okay, I'll see you at Laney, for example. And then you and him will go to the dean's office. And he looks at the dean and says, this is my young friend, Michael Lapowski. Okay? He has his master's. I need him to teach a couple of classes here. And the dean says, fine. How old are you? 23. So, instead of figuring out what you are good at, because it's always difficult to kind of do things on your own, just go out there. It's like a buffet. See what dish tastes good for you. And then go to the person who's cooked it and say, give me the recipe. That's Lapowski. That's any good instructor on this campus. And don't worry about not liking something initially, because we are very strange sort of creatures. What you don't like today, after some practice, you'll begin to like them. What you like today, after some exposure, you'll begin to dislike it enormously. You're far too young to go out there and figure out what you're good at or what you like. Don't be American. It'll always backfire. This idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it's not going to work. Make sure you run good advertisements. Yeah. Attraction capacity. Anyone else before we I'm sorry, Andrew, your question was observation?
Observation and judgment.
Okay. You had vertical, horizontal. Josh, what was the question?
It was a parenting question.
Oh.
The ethics of teaching your
Oh, kid.
children pain, teaching them to deal with pain. Probably not a direct judgment.
You know, when I was 20, I began to translate this Persian Arabic book called Tazkiratul Awliya. I was interested in the lives of Persian philosophers and thinkers. And so I spent the next few years at the car wash just translating. One of the stories is that there was this great philosopher who had sent his own kids to another teacher. And so his disciple curiously asks him, you know, you're the grand sheikh, the grand teacher of our community. Why do you send your kids to another teacher? And he says, well, kids never really learn from their parents. And you don't really understand that. You assume that just because you have a great amount of experience and, you know, wisdom even about you, that your kids are willing to sit back and listen. And they can, but it depends on what kind of a parent you are. If you're like the Buddha, for example, you know, I remember there's a story about Ramana Maharshi when his mother went on this quest to figure out where her son is. She hadn't seen him for about 20, 30, 40 years. Eventually she finds him, and by the time she finds him, she had like cancer 4, stage 4. And Ramana knows that she's going to die. And he doesn't whine, he doesn't cry, he kind of just knows that everybody dies. She's my mom, she's also going to die. He just kind of embraces her, puts her right hand on her chest, and helps her die, and that's it. The more detached you are from things, the better of a teacher you can be. But it depends on the sort of detachment we're talking about. If you're detached because, as Aristotle would say, you've turned into a savage, a beast, that you never received love from your own parents, and that kind of broke the foundation, which means that your trust factor, your faith factor, your intimacy factor, they've all been shot because you don't want to feel the pain caused by your parents. You don't want to have that anymore. So you get a little close, but not too close. You'll give the other person a little amount of power, but not too much power, because even if they betray you, you have most of yourself to yourself. You haven't given yourself completely to another human being, so they have no power over you. If they want to walk away, walk away. It doesn't mean you won't be sad or disappointed, okay? If, on the other hand, you've learned detachment by, for example, slowly evaluating your own life and coming to realize most of the things you pursued have been a waste of your time. And now your quest in life is what we call the vertical line, you know, where you want to kind of figure out who you are inwardly, how society has defined you, how you're able to break the bonds that society or change the society has around you. That slowly, because of the introspection. And introspection means now you care about your own thoughts, about your own feelings. And the moment you go into that journey, you're less available for your wife. It doesn't mean that physically you won't be there. You'll be there physically, but you'll be preoccupied. And you'll become more passive. Because what she says to you, what she talks about you, they no longer really matter. You're interested in observing what is living inside you. And little by little, she'll kind of look at you and say, Josh, where are you? You're really not spending too much time with us. And you say, well, we shouldn't eat together. You say, yeah, but you don't really talk. You don't even look at us. And it'll happen the same with your kids. You'll slowly move away. Now, initially, there's going to be this great amount of conflict because you have no idea how to manage these two worlds, the family life and your own life, your own psychic and intellectual and spiritual life. And these two are going to run into conflict day after day after day after day. And you'll be paralyzed in both because this is a new adventure. You don't really know how to start, you know, figuring out who you are, what has happened to you. You're a creation of what exactly? Society, your family, your own psyche, past experiences. And you have to figure out what to do also to coexist with the family. So you're going to be estranged from yourself, like you're going to be out You have no idea who you are. You also begin to regret being married and having children, for example. After many years of wrestling and hopefully coming out successfully, and most often it won't come out the way you want it to. It's mostly tragic. Your spouse will leave you, your kids will hate you. But if you're able to manage things well, and the only way you can manage these things well is you go on this quest first, and then you get married. Because the vice versa is you fall in love, you walk into life, and then all of a sudden you realize you want to do something different with your life. And you realize, well, it is true you're at a different station in your life, you're at a different stage in your life, but you also have this baggage. It's called being a father or a mother. Okay, what the hell do you do with the baggage that you're carrying? Well, you can't just get rid of it. So the conflict, the guilt, the shame is going to devour you. And it's going to devour you for a long, long time. And you're not going to change for your wife. Your wife has to change for you. Because she didn't marry this man who's going to be on this intellectual quest. She married a guy who makes about $50,000 a year. He's a good guy. And that's who she married. Not this guy who wants to be a Jesus Christ. Okay? If you're able to manage this stage in your life healthily, then once you've graduated from understanding, then you can slowly reinsert yourself back into life. And you be more of a better of a husband and a better of a father. And now you can look at your kids, and it happens organically. You don't have to really do much. You look at your kids, these are your kids, but they also belong to society. You know, so if you invite friends who come with a bottle of champagne or wine, you say, this culture is about drinking, smoking, and watching porn. It's a little too early to start these kids because it is a piece of advertisement, just seeing that bottle on the counter, you know. And then you don't really care if it's your brother, if it's sister, if it's your mom or your dad. You say, listen, when we have a gathering, no alcohol. Because society is eventually going to devour them. I don't want it to happen in my house. Okay. And there comes a point, you know, I don't know. It's always going to be difficult teaching your kids anything. You know, the only thing you can hope for if you're a good parent is plant the seeds. If you're lucky enough to survive life and live long enough, maybe your kid will come back, knock on the door and say, Dad, yeah, you were right. I was wrong. I've been wrong for the past 60 years. Say, okay, well, you know. It's tricky. It's best you just let others teach, you know, your kids. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that kind of why it takes a village? Because I found that, especially during COVID, the more being instruction, the less he was willing to listen. And as soon as he went back to school, it got the same stuff that people all of a sudden.
You know, it's something that Confucius said, and you said it much more eloquently than Confucius. If he was alive, he'd probably be jealous of you. That yes, it does take a village to raise kids, but this is America. There are no villages. You know, as bumper stickers go, it's a beautiful bumper sticker. But our relation with our parents are not that close or intimate. We don't really have friends with whom we have rich history that has meaning and substance. Our grandparents are out, you know, and people are just suffering and struggling and lonely and all that stuff. So there is no village to be had. So you're on your own. And I suppose if my brother was here, he would say that we have to redefine what marriage is, what family is, whether it's good to have children. It may be that we are at a crossroad in our evolution that you have to kind of suppress the biological need, psychological need to have a children, to have maybe, you know, a companion. Just live a profoundly isolated life, you know, get close to some people to a certain degree, and when they leave, they leave. You know. There was a philosophy text that came out some years ago. The book itself was bad, but the cover of the book had a really, really nice title. The center no longer holds. That there is no center, there is no hub. You know, that to which you can attach the spokes or spikes. What are those things? Spokes, yeah. And since there is no hub, as the wheel is running, everything eventually gets demolished. There is no anchor. There is no support system. So in as much as, yes, it takes a village, there is no village, And now we're getting married a little later. Our parents are a little older. You can't take your 5-year-old to your father who's like 95. What the hell can your father do? He just looks at him, then, your father gets exhausted. So, what was your question, Sia?
What like self, like criticism?
From your parents? Your parents are always right. Just do what they say. And it's not a criticism. You're young, you lack experience. Young people are just stupid. Stupid because they have zero experience and they want to like wing it. And it's like a chick. You get to be 15 or 16, you want to kind of try out your wings. You want to go out there and fly. You say, damn it, Mom, I'm adult. I'm going to go out there and live on my own. I don't want to go to school. School sucks. School is for losers. I just want to go out there and make my own money. What your poor parents can do. You kind of have the resources to kind of just walk away, live in your car. And you're young enough to get on a train and just go where it goes. And then it's going to take you some time to realize that your parents were right and you were wrong. And you're an immigrant, right? Your parents are always right.
I think it's the other way. Like, they don't want me to go to school.